but a man who has made his living in politics, issuing advice and offering analysis, is Dick Morris. Dick Morris says the president really doesn't care that much about the border, but he does have a secret plan. Dick Morris, welcome back to America's Forum. We've been waiting to hear.
Thank you,
What is the secret plan?
Well, I believe that Obama wants to convert the United States into a one-party nation, a one-party democracy, but a one-party nation, like the Peronists in Argentina, the PRI used to be in Mexico, the LDP in Japan, a country where there really is only one functioning party and a bunch of splintered opposition parties. And I think that what he's doing is mobilizing all the powers of the federal government to achieve that. My wife Eileen and I have a book coming out at the end of September called Power Grab, Obama's Plan for a One-Party Nation. So you have to see the immigration debate through that prism, because that's how Obama's looking at it. His goal is to bring as many Democratic voters into the country as he possibly can. The handouts of food stamps and welfare and other entitlements are designed to get as much of the country on the dole as he can, so they're dependent on the federal government and the Democrats. His efforts to stack the Labor Relations Board are to try to get as many people into unions as possible so that they can control their votes and their campaign contributions. His blunting of the filibuster for judicial confirmations is designed to be able to pack the court with judges so that his executive actions can be approved. His plan to eliminate the Electoral College by having an interstate compact where they all agree to vote for the popular vote winner. His efforts to combat photo ID so voter fraud can become routine. These are all part and parcel of an effort to leave as his ongoing legacy the death and destruction of the Republican Party. Of course, the IRS conduct is part and parcel of that. That's what he's trying to achieve, in my view.
And Dick, a lot of folks are still looking for that direct tie between the White House and the IRS, and that may come. We see more emails popping up. But let's talk about a person who may potentially benefit should that plan actually work. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton. She does, though, have a, some would say, growing Israel problem. I want to play a clip from the former Secretary of State for you where she defends Hamas's practices of placing weapons, some might say, in schools because Gaza is small. Let's take a listen.
I'm not a military planner, but Hamas puts its missiles, its rockets in civilian areas. Part of it is that Gaza is pretty small and it's very densely populated. They put their command and control of Hamas military leaders in those civilian areas. Israel, I know, has sent warnings and tried to get people to move. But in any kind of conflict, there are going to be civilian casualties.
Well, Dick, earlier here today on America's Forum, we heard Alan Dershowitz basically say that theory is completely butt-kissed. What do you say?
When did she say this?
I think she said it earlier in that interview with Fusion and Jorge Ramos, I think a couple or 3 days ago.
Really, in the current period?
Yes, during the current period.
That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. There are places other than schools and the UN school and other places where hospitals where Hamas can set up its rocket launchers. The whole goal of Hamas was to goad Israel into a fight by throwing missiles at it, then use the Israeli attack to kill civilians, and then use the deaths of the civilians to hype its case internationally. Netanyahu said it best. He said, "We use our missiles to protect our children. They use their children to protect their missiles."
Well, Dick, I also want to ask you, of course, because you were in the Clinton White House during 1992 when we had a significant advancement in Mideast peace there. What did former First Lady Hillary Clinton miss by making that statement? She was there in the White House as well.
Well, Hillary has always been way to the left of Bill on Israel. In fact, she at one point spoke about her support for a Palestinian state, apart from the two-state solution. And you recall her kiss on Mrs. Arafat's cheek, the kiss that went around the world. Like most of the left, Hillary sees the world through a prism of the needs of the Palestinians. And we have to understand that what Israel is trying to do is to make itself invulnerable to attack. That's why it has the Iron Dome, that's why it has the separation border wall, and that's why it's blowing up the tunnels on the Gaza border. The goal is not to be aggressive. The goal is simply to stop Hamas and the other countries and terrorists from attacking Israel.
Dick Morris, you are knowledgeable about so many topics. It's hard to believe we almost saw one skate by you. That comment from Hillary Clinton on fusion of just a couple of days ago. And I guess what also makes it tough for Hillary is her history in the past, what she's had to say. For example, this quote from her book, quoting now, "When we left the city and visited Jericho in the West Bank, I got my first glimpse of life under occupation for Palestinians who are denied the dignity and self-determination that Americans take for granted." So not only does she have the comments on fusion the other night, there it is in print in her new book. Does all this add up to a political headache for Mrs. Clinton as she has designs on running for the presidency?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's not her major headache. Her major headache is the self-inflicted wound about her wealth and her speaking fees and all of that. But it is important. I think we need to understand that there are 11% of the Israeli voting population are Arabs. And there is an Arabic party that represents them that has, I believe, 11 members out of the 120 in the Knesset. So this is not without representation. They're fully represented in the Israeli democracy.
Dick, I want to bring it back home, away from foreign policy and more to the plans of this president dealing with the border. We are getting word now that President Obama is sending some of the new illegals coming into the country to the state of Hawaii. Now, that's pretty interesting. Is that because Neil Abercrombie, the governor there and my former House colleague, is such a staunch Obama supporter, sending them all the way to Hawaii?
Yeah. Well, I think he's sending them to all 50 states, but it's nice to give them a Hawaiian vacation. What's important to understand about the border situation is these children coming in illegally have no constitutional rights and no statutory rights. The law that everybody's citing, the 2008 law, applies to human trafficking, not to migration.
Ms. Morris, we also want to turn to talk about some midterm races. We know that Scott Walker, in the final 100 days of the campaign for Wisconsin governor, is facing Democratic challenger Mary Burke virtually in a dead heat. So who do you think is going to take this race?
Oh, I think that Walker is going to win it. This is his third race. He's the only guy that served one term but had 4 elections, plus a recall effort for the Senate. You recall there was an effort to recall him that was beaten back. I think that he'll pull it out in Wisconsin. He's currently 2 ahead, and I wouldn't minimize that. He won by like 4 or 5. Or 3 in one of the races, and he'll win by a narrow margin, but I think that he'll win. The important thing about what Walker is doing is that he has effectively neutralized the power of the public employee labor unions in Wisconsin. He's put a provision in the law that said that they have to be recertified each year by the teachers, and they've lost 80% of the elections. When given a vote, the teachers say to their unions, "We don't want you."
But in this situation, speaking of unions, Dick, today we just get the ruling from the Wisconsin Supreme Court, again ratifying, trying to minimize the power of the unions. And if past history is any guide, when the unions are hit in this way, they try to coalesce for one last grand hurrah. Now, given the fact that the Democratic challenger is running fairly close to Governor Walker, can this Supreme Court ruling serve as the catalyst, as the rallying point for organized labor to really move in and make a difference in the Walker race?
Well, there'll be every effort to do that, J.D., just like there was in the recall, but it fell short then, and I think it'll fall short now. Wisconsin is an armed camp politically. Both the conservatives and the liberals have mobilized every last possible voter, gotten humongous turnouts even in a recall election, and it's basically a face-off, and the conservatives have won. The important point in that state to remember is that education spending is up, test scores are up, the unemployment rate is down, the job creation has been terrific, and the very law that Walker passed that the unions hate has done more to reduce class sizes than anything else. Because what he's done is he said all of our education money is going to go into the classroom. And he's saying that union members don't have to pay for an excessive union health insurance industry, excessive people transportation costs. All these companies are run by the unions at huge markups. He's diverted that money and put it back into teacher pay and the classrooms. And that's why the breach here is not between Walker and the teachers. It's between the teachers and their own union.
All right, Dick Morris, we appreciate, as always, your encyclopedic knowledge and analysis of the political scene. We look forward to our next visit with you real soon. And we might point out that tomorrow we are going to go more in depth on the situation involving Scott Walker and what is afoot to try and unseat him there in the dairy state of Wisconsin. Do you think the unions will milk this for all it's worth?
Oh, JD, don't be cheesy. And the hits keep coming. No, but seriously, Scott Walker, you know, he's going to be the guy who's going to be looked at, maybe even more so than Chris Christie, as a union buster here. Potential 2016. More to come, though.
And the situation in Israel continues to unravel. Secretary of State Kerry is in India. Is he helping or hurting internationally? Our panel talks about it next.